Hey everybody, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm continuing my series on taking these incredible isolated vocal tracks. I'm doing a tutorial, a vocal analysis, talking about the recording process, writing, backstories about the band, etc. Next up, Sammy Hagar in Van Halen, and it's called Why Can't This Be Love? Now, many of you know Sammy and I are cousins, though I've really not had much interaction with him at all over the years, so I don't claim to have some real close relationship. We just happen to be cousins. And I want to do a tutorial takedown on how he sings, but before we get started, if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe to my channel. That would be really cool. I'm coming really close to 1 million subs. I'd love to hit that 1 million mark soon. And I have a singing course. The course is called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. You can find it right here at kentamplinvocalacademy.com, where I also have a free singing forum over there for you guys interested in wanting to learn how to sing. Gonna dive right in. Why can't this be love? Let's hit it. Here we go.
Wow, here it comes. That funny feeling again. Winding me up inside every time we touch.
Okay. Here. Wow! Jesus, bam! What is that, a C? I don't even know. Probably. Yeah, it's a C, a high C. Bam, right out of the gate. A high tenor C, just to show David Lee Roth what Sammy was made of, because there was obviously some serious competition and Sammy excelling in his strengths rather than trying to step into David Lee Roth's footsteps. He went ahead and just did Sammy, right? And it worked really well. In fact, there's two camps of Van Halen, as you know. There's the David Lee Roth camp and the Sammy Hagar camp, and I'm kind of like both camps myself personally. But it's true, though, that when Sam was in the band, they had a lot more musical success or commercial success than they did with David Lee Roth. But I want to point out some interesting things. Now, I did a tutorial on some Montrose stuff, so if you guys get a chance, I want you to check out the Montrose stuff. Sammy didn't have anywhere near that range in Montrose, and even through some of the Sammy Hagar solo era, as he did here in Van Halen. And I know he was trying to show off. I know he was trying to impress the David Lee Roth fans and show them that he was worthy to take over the band. And so he certainly won over the majority of people's hearts, so to speak, stepping into that very difficult role, because you have to be an amazing frontman to beat out David Lee Roth. And he stepped into that role in his own way and just really pulled it off, did a great job. Now, with that said, I think it's ironic that when you think of Van Halen, and you think, I remember an interview with Eddie saying, what does it feel like to be considered, talked about, and it was in Guitar World, I think, be talked about as the greatest guitar player in the world. And his answer was so humble. He goes, I don't know, I'm just some punk kid that liked to play his guitar. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really cool. Now, I'm sure he has an ego too, but that was a great response back. But we think of early Van Halen in the David Lee Roth era, we think of, or at least I think of, as a party band, right? It was a party. Woo! Faticha, it was just, right, all those, so I think of just this party band out of Pasadena. I grew up in LA, and there was a lot of party bands, and that's, with some great musicianship. David Lee Roth, whoa, it's Diamond Dave, right? So he had that, that thing going on. And so ironically, Sam too, I Can't Drive 55, and Mas Tequila, and all these different songs. Even his set after he left Van Halen, his set was his restaurant, waitress, bring it over, right? And so you have this party vibe. His was more tailgate party, and maybe in the early Van Halen days with David Lee Roth, there was a little bit more LA party, or that kind of woohoo kind of party. But anyway, but they both came from party band backgrounds, and I think it's really interesting. And when Sam joined the band kind of lost, I don't say lost, but it no longer was prevalent as the party-esque vibe. It was more about writing corporate songs, and that's precisely what we have here, is a lot of corporate songwriting and, really just big anthemic choruses and stuff. So I wanted to kind of say this so you guys could cast a vision for you as we're going through this. So anyway, Sam, sporting a high C right out of the gate. Bam, here we go.
Wow, here it comes. That funny feeling again. Winding me up inside every time we touch. Hey, I don't know, but tell me where to begin, 'cause I never ever felt so much.
Okay, now I want to go back and I want to talk about this kind of compression in the throat. I will be honest, and I don't care if anyone gets mad at me for saying this, I am shocked that Sam's voice lasted this long, because there are a lot of guys that compress this way in their throat, and I don't want to name names, but you all know who they are, that came out of this era and before, and Sam has just been able to do this for 40 plus years, and almost all of the guys with this sound have lost their voices, okay? So it's a really squeezed pinch that, hey, I don't know, I'm only dudes rushing, only time will tell if it stand the test of time, so it's a really pinch squeeze sound, and it's kind of like an American muscle car where everything has to be muscled up to a sound. Now, at Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, I don't teach you that. I teach distortion. I love a big distorted sound, but I'm more on the Dio side or a big rounder sound, and I love Lou Gramm, and of course you guys know this, I've said it a million times, Paul Rogers, all these guys. Love Sam too. But as far as the roundness and the safety on the sound, it's a very dangerous sound. It's not easy to do, and it's dangerous to try to go after over the long haul. And I'm not saying you can't emulate it, but so let's do this again. So, hey, I don't know. Let me just do that. Hey, I don't know. Right? That's kind of basically what he did. And it's just really throaty and just heaving up, so to speak, kind of our vowel sound, just, to bringing up a lot of muscle mass into the throat. Very hard to do that. And it takes a lot of diaphragmatic support. And you can really hear him using a lot of upper diaphragmatic support, not necessarily full body. Check it out. Listen again.
Tell me where to begin, 'cause I never ever felt so much.
Yeah, tell me where to begin, 'cause I never ever felt so much. Right? And he's got the real squeeze sound. All right, let's continue.
And I can't recall any love at all. Oh, baby, this blows them all away.
Yeah. Oh, baby, this blows them all away. Right? And he loves the he does that a lot at the end of his phrases. Here we go.
It's got what it takes. So tell me why can't this be love?
It's got what it takes. So tell me why can't this be love? Right? Now it's also really interesting to me is that the verse comes in bam in this song, but the chorus is really low, right? But it's kind of cool because it really fits the motif and the vibe of everything going on. So he didn't just try to keep hitting us and banging us over the head with just a bunch of high notes for the sake of high notes. He's choosing the songwriter route and actually writing a very catchy thing that fit the key of the song and the motif of what was going on in the instrumentation, which is really cool.
It's got what it takes. So tell me why can't this be love? Straight from my heart. Oh, tell me why can't this be love? I tell myself.
See here, that's good. I tell myself. These are really, really really squeezed in the throat to get that sucker out, right?
I tell myself, hey, only fools rush in. Only time will tell if we stand the test of time.
Now, another thing that happens when you compress a lot of air in the throat like that, there's a tendency for everyone, almost everyone, to have a caprino vibrato, which is a goat swiggle. And it's to me, it's a little nervous feeling, but in his case, it works great because it's his style and it's just so Sammy. But if you listen closely, let me play it again.
Hey, only fools rush in.
Hey, only fools rush in. He's got that. And time will tell if we stand the test. He's got a real where if it were a more relaxed. Hey, only fools rush in. Only time will tell if we stand the test of time. Right? Yeah. Instead of yeah. Like real fast vibrato, and it's really pinched. Now, if you want to get away from that sound, hey, you can have a bigger, rounder sound rather than, again, everything just being so forced in the throat, which again is really hard to maintain. Now, we do see guys like Brian Johnson doing it in AC/DC, and he's able to pull it off for a while, but Sam somehow is able to pull it out and relax the throat enough, and there's big, long instrumental breaks in these songs too, that relax the throat. but is to where he's able to get back up and stay up in range, whereas guys like Brian Johnson and others that use this sound can't. Now, I gotta say, David Coverdale did a good job of this too, where he was able to pinch and squeeze going up top like this, and was able to kind of find his way, navigate through some of this stuff to keep the range, but it is very, very, very hard to do. All right, let's continue.
Hey, only fools rush in.
So, yeah, foo, instead of foo, it's foo. Real fast vibrato.
Time will tell if we stand the test of time. I know you got to run to.
Now, another thing is there's an illusion. Yeah. I don't know. It's like he's really killing this. I don't. He's really not singing as heavy as it appears, because the way glottal compression works in this case is he's actually constricting the air like a good boy. We've talked a lot about that, so that he doesn't let so much air pass across the chords as to dry them out. Now, if you were to over sing and overuse the air, you would dry out the chords so bad, you get 3 songs and you're done. So a lot of you guys out there, you go, yeah, it's true. Like I go out there and I get like my 3 songs done, and after that, it's all downhill from there. And he's able to pull off a 90-minute set or a 2-hour set because he's compressing his air. He probably doesn't even know he did that or is doing that, but that is what's saving him from drying out the chords so much that he gets dysphonia or loses sound, okay?
I know you got to run to win, and I'll be damned if I'll get hung up on the line. Hey, no, I can't recall anything at all. Oh, baby, this blows them all away. It's not what it takes. So tell me, why can't this be love? You want it straight from the heart. Oh, tell me, why can't this be love?
Now, when I used to play the chorus of this without knowing what's going on, I remember hearing this section. I'm going to put the band in, and I want to show you something. Check this out with the band in.
So tell me, why can't this be love? You want it straight from the heart. Oh, tell me, why can't this be love?
Now, if you notice, when it gets to this section, there's a lot of doubler in the sound to make it bigger, whether it was double tracked or using doubler or both, and then there's harmonies and stuff. But I never noticed that. I always just thought it was a single line of Sammy out front because all the other stuff is, but this part gets really fat, and you don't really notice it until you isolate the vocal and listen to it by itself.
So tell me, why can't this be love? You want it straight from the heart.
Hear that?
Tell me, why can't this be love?
Do you hear that? It's way up there. Was that a D? I think so. Let's see. Yeah, it's way up there. That's an interesting line too, by the way. It's a kind of a jazzy, kind of bebop jazzy kind of thing. It's a very interesting choice. It's not his normal thing to do something like that.
It's got what it takes. So tell me, why can't this be love? Straight from the heart. Tell me, why can't this be love?
Hear all that doubling in there?
Baby, why can't this be love? Got to know, why can't this be love? I wanna know, why can't this be love?
Love! He's got that real love! Right? Anyway, I want to go back to the top, and I want to talk one more thing. Show you the difference between what you just heard in the doubler effect and when he's just singing alone. Check it out.
That funny feeling again, winding me up inside every time we touch.
Now, even there, even though it's a solo vocal, there is a doubler effect. Probably an old AMS reverb that you could have has a little setting on it that was a doubler effect. I think Andy Johns did this record. I have to go back and look. And I worked with Andy on a record, on 2 records actually, and I know that he likes to use that a lot. It's a beautiful doubler effect. You can't really hear the doubling as much. It's just kind of present, and it's not. You don't hear so much slap to the sound because there's not a lot of millisecond delay to it. But if you listen to it in the track, it doesn't sound doubled at all. Check it out.
Every time we touch.
Okay, you hear that? So you really don't know all the nuances of all this stuff until you peel everything back, peel all the instrumentation back, and really get to the core of the isolated vocal tracks. All right? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I've got a lot more of these coming your way, and please check out my next video.